Welcome back to Collate Discovery. I am joined by Collate founding solutions engineer Joe Perez. For this episode, how are you, Joe?
I am excellent. If you were on 10 seconds ago, it might not sound that way, but we are doing great here today. The year's almost over. I think that's actually the most crazy part of how I'm doing. I keep talking to people and they're like, yeah, we'll just do that next year. I'm like, next year? And then I'm like, wait, that's like a month away when
6
you
weeks.
factor in holidays. It's like, okay, yeah, I will actually see you next year. No, but time's moving fast. And, I will say the product's moving absolutely faster and excited to share today the directions that we're headed.
Right. So at the time of this recording, we recently released this data product feature in Collate.
Yeah. And, at the time of this recording, I have been ever so impressed with this feature. I've always thought data products, aside from a lot of the, hype that you might read on LinkedIn or
And
Medium
movie.
blogs, were like, oh, you need to do 10 reasons why you need to do a data mesh yesterday. It's like, okay, sure, relax. I think there is a lot of value. And, more specifically than like the mesh in general or the marketplace, I really think this thing that we call a data product is actually fundamentally more important than any of that hype or noise. And I'm surprised that there's not more hype just centered around this.
Yeah, my challenge with the topic around all of that for years has been a lack of specificity. There'll be a little bit at the front, wave the hands, and look. It's like, but wait a second, what's in there? So I recently had some time to work with the new data product feature. I was producing some other content, and my kind of short takeaway was it was a way to create kind of an arbitrary collection of data asset objects. I know there's more to it than that, but is that kind of in the right field? You can kind of create this object, you can give people access, and it can do things or be things.
I think that's the first step, but I think there's a whole lot more to the surface. And actually, before we actually even get into how Collate does data products, I'll give you, Joe's take on, a data product. And I should actually run downstairs and grab one. So I actually came ill prepared for this. But I like to think of data products as a cereal box. And actually, if you give me 1 second, I'm going
Flash
to do
drive.
that, Sean. So give me 1 second. And just like that, I have ran to my local supermarket in that 10-second cut and grabbed a box of Honey Nut Cheerios. And for anyone not following along, they probably have think Joe has finally gone off his rocker. Why does he have cereal? This is worse than the Hawaiian shirts episode. What is going on here? But there's a method to my madness. And when I think about data products, I think about cereal boxes. I think it's the perfect analogy. And I think about cereal boxes because there's a whole lot of overlap. One, if I tell you, hey, what's data? This is what data is. If I ask you what a data product is, this is a data product. It tells me I can, help me get low cholesterol. It gives me an expiration date. It tells me who the manufacturer or the owner is. It's the General Mills custom company. I even have some nutrition facts I probably shouldn't read into too much because I'll be rethinking my life choices and probably hitting the treadmill in the morning. But it tells me the contents, the ingredients, how it's made. So, to your earlier point, a data product in Collate is, an assortment of different data assets. Hey, those are the ingredients. But it also tells me a whole lot more how I should be using it. It has amazing taste. It lowers my cholesterol. It's made of these ingredients. It's this expiration date is when I should use it by. But really, what that does is create trust. And that's what it's all about. So, Sean, I know you're a trusting guy. You trust me a lot. But if I just gave you and reached into my pocket and just grabbed a handful of Honey Nut Cheerios and placed them in your hand with zero context, I don't know if you're to eat them. I know we have a great relationship, but you might raise an eyebrow. You might eat just one. Um, but if I gave you the box, sealed, packaged, and ready for delivery, you're gonna use that. At least I hope.
That's a good analogy, actually. I really like that. I'm gonna store that in the old memory bank for later.
And that's just the cereal box. When we think about the larger ecosystem, when you go to a supermarket, it's so easy to find cereal. You look up, it says cereal, and you go to that aisle. that's starting to think about the bigger principles at play here, like domain driven architecture. That aisle is a domain, cereals is a type. The box of Honey Nut Cheerios is that data product. So, really trying to get there and bridge those gaps and make it, as consumable for the users as possible is what data products allow. So, if no other questions, maybe we show my Honey Nut Cheerios in Collate and go from there.
Yeah, and I liked how you used consumable. Nice double entendre.
Yeah, very good. So what we want to do now is navigate right to the data products. And Shawn, you were mentioning that some new advancements and things have come. So for those longtime viewers and users of Collate, you're probably familiar with this domain icon. Now you're seeing an additional data products field. We've not separated them. You can still find data products under domain, but we've just made it easier to navigate to from a usability standpoint. And we can also add these to the home page and think about that because you want these things front and center. You don't necessarily want people to use data anymore. You want them to use data products. So again, making it easier, making it quicker to discover, again, looking up in the aisle and seeing where I need to be. When we get here, we have this nice list view, but I honestly love the card view. It just makes it a little bit more consumable for me, where I can see this customer 360. I can see glossary terms and tags associated. I can see who the expert is, who the owner is. So, hey, it's the General Mills company, it's the customer team. Hey, if I have any questions, it's Collate Kate, my, certified nutrition. It's that little honey nut logo bee that's flying around is Collate Kate here. But again, already surfacing some of that fundamental understanding. But then I can click on this and see more and then really think about, what is it made with? What is the overview? How I should be using this? What domain does this fall under? All of those different contextual pieces that are so relevant in me using the right asset are starting to be surfaced here.
Yeah, it really pulls it together. And then the description there, I mean, it's free form and a lot of data has been put in there to describe what's happening and kind of requirements, I think.
Yeah, and I think it kind of just goes to like design principles. We want this to be as rich as possible. Again, I'm going to pull this in here. When you look at this closely, it gives you the, oh, I just disappeared. It gives you the reason. But then if you look at the back of the box, it's everything that you need to know about the cereal. And that's really what we try capturing, in this front and center panel. But then if you look at this right-hand navigation, it's all that nutrition facts. If there's any reviewers or custom properties, how do I get access to this and things like that. But then if we wanted to open this up, we most certainly can and actually get to our data, actually get to our cereal that's in the box.
This is where those assets are allocated and
And this is what
organized.
you were referring to, at the beginning, where it's a collection of these things. But if I were to just given you, these three objects, Shawn, with no context, you don't know if it's the right tables or what you should even be using these tables for. It's just a customer
Yeah.
table and a staging payments table. That's not very helpful for you. But then once you have
Right.
all of this documentation in front of you, you can really understand, the completeness, the, governance and stewardship that goes into this, all of that
Yeah.
rich information which is needed to actually, consume and perform your analytics on.
Very nifty.
Yeah. And again, these things are searchable in the UI. If I were to click on the, asset itself, we can tie directly back to the data product. So again, it's that, bi-directional relationship that's also important. So whether you come across this customers table via the data product or you come across this data product via the customers table, we want to make sure that linkage is ensured and maintained.
There's a real convenience factor there. If you're exploring via data product, you see everything that's there. You just click and you're into this view. You don't have to go
Yep.
through a whole search aspect. It just really ties it together nicely.
Yeah, and you could always like search and then see what's out there. And of course, if we click into our domains area, we can see the different data products that we have and start being able to, understand them and consume them a whole lot better.
So let's talk a little bit about we're a company, pick somebody, Nike, whatever. So you've got categories of sports, you've got shoes, you've got apparel, you've got sports gear, you've got sports, equipment and whatnot. Now they want to do something because you've got analysts that need to deal maybe with sales across apparel across divisions, or just these kinds of things. How might an organization like that maybe make use of this specifically?
Yeah, no, I think it's actually great for those larger organizations, especially the modern day enterprise like a Nike. I'm actually going to stick on this General Mills train. As you can tell, I didn't have lunch today. But General Mills makes cereal. We know that. What they also make is
Right.
Blue Buffalo dog food. Now, they both have customers, but the customers are very different. So you would want a
Yeah.
Blue Buffalo data product that has all those customer tables, but you can't rely on just the term customer table. It needs the context of what this actually is. Now, similarly with the cereals, you have its own customers, the own, stores that buy it and things of that, which are also slightly different. They're made for two different purposes. My PetSmart and my Publix aren't the same type of grocery store. So really thinking about it from that lens, hey, let's use this data product to understand the Blue Buffalo sales and customers and things like that. In that data product for Blue Buffalo, I'm going to have dashboards tailored for Blue Buffalo. I'm going to have tables or materialized views tailored towards Blue Buffalo dog food. Versus in my General Mills cereal, it's going to be a different, experience, different data sets. But if you were to just look at the data sets at face value, you may not be getting the full picture and you might actually think, oh, they both have sales data. Well, no, it's the
Yeah.
context surrounding it. It's what I should be using this for. And then more specifically, you have 100 different sales tables, maybe in Blue Buffalo. What's the best one for this specific report? Whether I'm reporting out to the street
Yeah.
or if I'm just doing my quarterly business review, you're going to have different use cases and you're going to have different products.
That's an excellent analogy. I'm going to go so far as to give you three quarters credit for coming up with that. We can't ever go with full credit, but I'll give you three quarters. Usually it's only partial. So I'm pretty impressed today, Joe. Thank you.
3/4 is a lot. I'll take that. It's a whole 75 cents. And without the penny, that's 3/4. So yeah.
This is great. I really appreciate you walking through that. This is such a powerful concept, and it's not a hard thing to get your head around. Like some of the stuff we see coming out is never very well explained, and I think your analogy explains it in a way that any normal human being understands. It puts it in context of what pretty much everybody does, at least once a week, go to the grocery store
Yeah.
and look for things. So,
Yeah.
no, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of not having to reinvent the wheel and steal from industries miles ahead from us in the data space. And I have a great experience. When I go to the grocery store to get my food, I rather do that than have to grow Honey Nut Cheerios. I'm sure you just can actually sprinkle a couple in the soil and some sprouts start forming. Water it with milk and you get a Cheerio tree. But just makes life a whole lot easier being able to get something that's packaged, consumed, and formed for your exact needs.
Well, I am an avid gardener, and you are correct. That is where they come from. So
So we could put it
it's
in a bucket, couldn't we?
we could do the bucket. I'm not sure if anybody will get the bucket.
Long time watchers and listeners of you, Sean. I'm sure you have a huge audience and fan base is in the know to these things. So
There's tens and tens of people, fans around the block and even around the city. It's pretty
I didn't
impressive.
know you could call them fans if you paid for them. So that's actually something I learned today.
All right. Well, this was good. Thank you so much, Joe. And
Of course,
we will
Sean.
do another one soon.
Always a pleasure. Thanks very much. Bye bye.